nations against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world, and then shall the end come.
Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I want to welcome you to Tuesday's edition of End of the Age. I'm Dave Robbins with Endtime Ministries, and I want to thank you for joining me this afternoon. Actually, not really filling in for Irvin today, but just wanted to let you know Irvin was on the Jim Bakker show this morning on an interview with him. I guess they're going to have two interviews where Irvin was interviewing with Jim Bakker, and then the program will be aired, I guess, in a week or two on Jim Bakker's show. So should be a pretty interesting interview coming up. A couple programs you guys will get to watch. And then that he's having a prophecy conference at Jim Bakker's church tonight. So a lot of exciting things happen. We're looking for a lot of great things to come from that. Jim Bakker's got a huge audience. And so hopefully God will, you never know what the opportunity is there. So kind of a unique experience it's the first time Irvin's ever been on the Jim Bakker show. And so God really helped us out. It was a unique situation because our new COO here, Brian Horde, used to work for Jim Bakker years ago. And he was instrumental in getting us on that interview. So kind of a unique situation this morning happened. A couple interviews with Irvin Baxter and Jim Bakker. And so a lot of you would recognize him as a religious figure that's on television. So kind of unique and a neat opportunity for Endtime Ministries this morning. So I do want to talk to you today about a really interesting subject. And a lot of you will remember that Ben Franklin said, "Believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see." So today, I'm going to discuss President-elect Donald Trump and the ongoing effort to establish a national ID in the United States. We'll be discussing the Real ID. So that most of the Real ID we'll talk about in the last 30 minutes of the program. But in the first 30 minutes of the program, I know that the question is on all of your minds. It has to be, as well as mine. Will Donald Trump follow through on all of those pre-election promises that he gave? All throughout the campaign trail, he's talking about, I'm going to do this, I'm going to stop this, I'm going to axe this, I'm going to prosecute this person. We all heard it. We all watched the debates. We all were following in the news, wanting to know who's going to be the next president. Well, if it was Hillary, is she going to do which I think it was pretty evident that she would have done what she was saying she was going to do. But the question is, she was a politician. But the question is, Trump's not a politician. So what is he going to do? The question's on everybody's mind. So the question is about Trump. And I'm getting questions all the time. You're calling here, Dave, Irvin, what's the deal with Trump? Is he going to do this? Is he going to defund Planned Parenthood? What's going on? What's he going to do? Well, really, the only way you can really know what direction Trump's going to go in is when he starts making decisions and starts putting things into place and says, okay, I will cut this. No, I'm not really going to cut that. What's he going to renege on? It's very important because I want to know which direction our country's going in. It's important to us. Everybody living here in the United States, we want to know, are we going to head down a conservative path, or are we going to continue down the liberal path that we've been on, making horrible decisions really for our country? Or is Trump going to pull us out of the United Nations and stand with Israel, be a true friend to Israel, What's going to happen? Believe me, I've had a barrage of these questions coming in. What about Trump? Well, what we plan to do is exactly what Ben Franklin said. Believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see. That's what we're going to do. I hear what Trump said, but now I want to see what he's going to do. What is he going to do? That's going to be the key figures. That's going to be the telltale sign of which direction our country is going to head down. Liberal, conservative, we're going to pull out of the United Nations, we're going to cut off the Trans-Pacific Partnership, all these huge trade deals. We're going to move away from the climate change deal that was signed, which is an absolute hoax. It's just a wealth redistribution scheme by the United Nations. Is Trump going to cut that deal off? I mean, what's going on? And so what I wanted to do in the first segment of the program is to help you. I want to show you what we're going to do in deciding where's Trump, which direction is he going to go in? And there are several key issues. And he talked about a lot of these key issues up front in the election process, during the debates and different things. But now we want to watch those key issues to see what he does. He said this: it's easy to say, I'm going to cut this and slash this and move this and do away with this. But when you get in there and have to make it all happen, a lot of times that's a different story, because you're relying on, rather than yourself saying it, you're relying on thousands of people that you have to work with to make all this stuff happen. So what are the key issues? That's what we're going to talk about. And if you think about it, right today, let's talk about something going on in the news right now. It comes from the New York Post, and the article states Trump will not pursue charges against Clinton. So if you think about it, you and we all heard the debate, and it was the second presidential debate in October. And Trump he had a much harsher tone than he does today. He stated emphatically, if I win, he was talking to Hillary, if I win, I'm going to instruct my attorney general to get a special prosecutor to look into your situation, all of the emails and all this corruption that was going on, because there has never been so many lies and so much deception. President-elect Trump said that. Many of you watched the debate, you heard it. And some of us were taken aback, like, wow, he actually said that? He's going to appoint a special prosecutor to prosecute Hillary Clinton? Well, today, now he said that on the campaign trail, he said that, before he got elected at the second debate. Today, the New York Post says that the president-elect, Donald Trump, will not subject Hillary Clinton to a criminal inquiry. Instead, he's going to try to help her heal. And so, basically, all of the corruption and the illegal action that he was talking about, we're just going to kind of sweep that under the rug, and we're not going to prosecute Hillary. We're just going to try to help her heal. I'm not 100% sure what that even means. But at the end of the day, on the campaign trail, in the debates, he said, I'm going to prosecute you. She made the statement, I'm just glad that somebody like Donald Trump isn't over the laws in this country. And he said, yeah, you'd be in jail. And the crowd erupted. But at the end of the day, now he's coming back and saying, I'm not going to do that. I know I said that, and all of my supporters loved it, but I'm not going to do that now. So he kind of backed off of what he said he was going to do. So that some of us are kind of questioning, okay, now what else is he going to back off of? I'm asking myself that question. He said he was going to do this originally. What's he going to do? What's going to come to fruition here? So let's look at some of the key issues and kind of see if we can judge where's he at. Because these issues are what you should be looking at to see if Trump's going to take us down a conservative path or we're going to continue down a liberal path. I'm not saying that we will. I'm saying that until he gets in there January 20 and we start making decisions and saying, I'm going to cut this, I am going to continue with this, that I said I was going to cut, we don't know at this point. And so, but we can watch and see what he says in the 60-minute interview, all these different interviews and speeches that he's given. We can watch and see, okay, here's the tone that he's going to set, and here's what's going to happen. Now, the first one that you should watch, in my opinion, is abortion. It appears to be a sticking point to his former claims of, he appears to be sticking to it that he is pro-life. He said originally in the campaign trail, I am pro-life. Well, in his the recent 60-minute interview, he stated, I'm pro-life, and the justices that I appoint will be pro-life as well. So he appears to be sticking with that, and I'm happy that that's the case, because I'm obviously, everybody here at Endtime, we're pro-life as well, and I don't believe in abortion. I don't believe in late-term abortion, no abortion. I believe in the sanctity of life, and so Trump's pro-life, Hillary Clinton was not, and so consequently, we're wanting to see what's happening. In his 60-minute interview, he was saying, I'm pro-life, and I'm going to appoint justices that are pro-life. So I was happy to see that. But we'll have to see over the next 6, 8 months to a year, 2 years, how all this stuff plays out. And I'm hoping and I'm praying that we stay on that path. But that's one of the things that you should watch, the issues. Not necessarily taxes, although taxes are very, very, very important. But taxes do not define the person. What defines the person is personal things and these things that have to do with really prophetic implications and all these different things. Those things really kind of define the person. Is the guy pro-abortion? Is he against it? Will he stay on that path? And then another thing that would be important to us, because climate change is a hoax made up by the United Nations and the global elite to redistribute wealth from independent developed nations to underdeveloped, non-developing nations, a wealth redistribution scheme. That's what climate change is all about. Global warming, which leads to climate change through CO2 emissions and different things, that's an absolute lie from the United Nations and the global elites. Think about it. It's all in the news. They're signing these big deals. The Paris climate change deal and all these different things. That's all a hoax designed to redistribute the wealth of the world. The United Nations is a socialistic entity. One of their main platforms is wealth redistribution. Climate change is the main thing that they've chosen to redistribute the wealth in the world because they believe in socialism. Everybody being on the same playing field. So how does President-elect Donald Trump, where does he stand on climate change? Well, he stated in May of 2016 that in an energy speech in North Dakota, he stated, I'm going to rescind all the job-destroying Obama executive actions, including the Climate Action Plan. We're going to cancel the Paris Climate Agreement, which I am doing cartwheels. You just can't see it yet because it's a hoax. And he's going to stop all payments of U.S. tax dollars to the UN global warming programs. Well, okay, now, that's awesome. I mean, I couldn't have heard anything better come out of a candidate's mouth than that, because he's standing in the face of this world governing body that's being created, and he says, we're going to cut that deal. That's a hoax, and I'm not going to have any more to do with that. And if the United States usually cuts funding to these deals, as a rule, because we fund most of the United Nations actions, they'll go away. Now, will this UN the climate change deal go away? I don't know that, because there may come a time when the UN, all the powers shift over to Europe and they start functioning over there and we stand on our own. If that's the case, as long as we've got God in our corner and we're a God-focused country and a Christian-based country, I'm not worried about that at all, because we can stand alone if we've got my hand in the Lord's hand. I'm not worried about any of the rest of this stuff. And so, but that's one of the things you want to see. Abortion. What's President-elect Trump going to do on abortion? Which direction are we headed down? Because it's a moral issue. And he stated back in October, I want to defund Planned Parenthood because 30-some% of what Planned Parenthood does is abortion. And it's not 3%, it's 30-some%. And so consequently, abortion is one of the things we need to watch on President-elect Trump. What's he going to do? Let's watch what he does on abortion. Let's watch what he does on climate change, because he, in doing so, in cutting the United States off of these climate deals, he's standing in the face of the international community, the world government, and said, no, get your hands out of the United States. We're not going to do that. We don't want to be involved in all of this, which I'm very happy about, because I do not want to conform to the one world governing body in any way, shape, or form in the next few years between now and the Battle of Armageddon. We don't want to be a part of that world governing body, because God's coming back to judge that. Because the Bible says Satan gives the Antichrist and this one world governing body its seat, power, and great authority. Satan is behind this one world government push. So you can understand when somebody in the United States stands in their face and say, no, don't want a part of that, then we're around here doing high fives and saying, yeah, this is what I'm talking about. We don't want to be a part of that. So abortion, climate change, those are two things. What's Trump going to do on that? The next one, gun control. President-elect Trump, during the campaign trail, he stated, the Second Amendment to our Constitution is clear. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed upon, period. The Second Amendment guarantees a fundamental right that belongs to all law-abiding citizens. The Constitution doesn't create that right. It ensures that government can't take it away. So, I'm believing and I'm hoping that President Trump will stand by that, because the only reason people would want to take all the guns away is so they could usurp authority over those individuals with no means of resistance. It's absolute control with no means of resistance. That's why it's called gun control. They want to control everything. The global elites would like to disarm all of the citizens of the world so they could impose their will with no means of resistance. Well, our forefathers knew that if we were not armed as citizens, that there would be a way for a governmental tyranny to occur again, and we would have no means of resistance. No weapons, no means of resistance. So they put it, that's what the Second Amendment is in there for. It's not in there so we can hunt and go shoot clay pigeons. That's not what it's in there for. It's in there so if a tyrannical government tries to take over the United States, that we would put that off and institute another form of government. And without weapons, that's impossible. And they knew that. So we have a president coming in that's saying, I will protect that right of our citizens to have the right to keep and bear arms. Think of it. A president who would come in and say, I want to take that away, there's only one reason why they would do that. Because they want to control you and be able to tell you whatever they want you to do with no means of resistance. That's why the Second Amendment is so important in our society today in 2016. And so going into this new administration, that's one of the things that I will be watching very, very, very closely is our Second Amendment rights. These rights are given to us by God, not by government or not by man, but these rights, these are unalienable rights given to us by God. And we just simply can't give that up. So that's one of the things that I'll be watching President-elect Trump on is the Second Amendment. Abortion, climate change. What's he going to do? The Second Amendment. Immigration. Of course, he stated, now think about this. He stated originally, we all heard during the campaign trail, I will build a great, great wall on our southern border, and I will have Mexico pay for that wall. Well, in the 60-minute interview with Leslie Stahl said, okay, President-elect Trump, let's go through very quickly some of the promises you made and tell us if you're going to do what you said you're going to or are you going to change it anyway? Are you really going to build a wall? He said, yes, I will build a wall. Leslie Stahl said, well, you know that they're talking about a fence in the Republican Congress. Would you accept a fence? And he said, well, for certain areas, I would consider a fence. But just for certain areas, a wall is more appropriate. I'm very good at this. It's called construction. So Leslie said, well, so part wall, part fence? And Trump said, well, yes, there could be some fencing. Now, I'm not sure the stretches of the areas that he's talking about, some fencing, some wall. I don't know that. I mean, there's possibly some mountain ranges or things where you wouldn't need a wall. I'm not 100% sure what he's talking about, but originally he was saying wall, wall, wall. Now he's saying, well, we could actually have some fencing and some wall. Well, if we have a fence, they will seriously have to have some security on that fence, because obviously a fence is a lot more impenetrable than a wall. So we'll just have to watch what happens there, because he ran on the platform of, I'm going to build a wall. And I'll have a door in the wall and people can come in legally, but we're not going to have illegal immigration in this country. And so, how do you see it? Do you see it as, well, the fence is okay. If they patrol the fence and police it, it's probably going to be okay. But at this point, I simply don't know. It's just something we need to watch for, because illegal immigration is something that we're concerned about in this country. Because if you don't have any borders anymore, you don't have a country. I mean, let's just face it. And the world government is wanting to do away with borders, have a borderless world. And so that's one of the things we're watching with Trump is, are you going to build the wall? And will it be impenetrable like you portrayed during the campaign trail? It's very, very important. The next thing we need to watch is Obamacare. Obamacare obviously is nationalized health care. And you say, now let me interject something real quick. President Trump's been talking about Mitt Romney possibly holding a position in his administration. Well, a lot of us don't like Obamacare. Absolutely not. Don't like Obamacare. And the prices are going up. A lot of doctors are being driven out of business. I personally know doctors who have been driven out of business. They simply couldn't compete anymore. And I'm talking about doctors that have been in business 30, 35 years. And friends of ours, out of business. And couldn't practice their profession anymore. A lot of that comes from Obamacare. And a lot of you have seen the rates just hike. They're just going to go up, 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 up. Well, if you think about it, Mitt Romney ran against Obama. And obviously Obama defeated him. But if Mitt Romney would have got in, rather than Obamacare, we would have had Romney Care. Because Romney instituted a similar health care plan in Massachusetts. So what do you think he would have done when he'd got in office? We'd have had Romney Care. Well, now Trump is considering him for a position in his administration. So some of the things, I'm watching the whole thing just like you are, and I've got questions just like you do. But I'm just kind of telling you what we're looking for, some of the telltale signs. What's he going to do? During the campaign trail, President-elect Trump said either Obamacare will be amended or repealed and replaced. Told that to the Wall Street Journal. He said that he favors, actually right now though, he's saying that I want to repeal it and replace it, but I want to keep some of the key things, which would be he would place protection for parents with patients with pre-existing conditions. Well, that's not exactly a bad thing. I mean, if somebody comes in and they've had something, and I don't know all the ins and outs of all that, but he's wanting to keep that. Okay, well that's either, some people could see that bad, some people don't. I don't know for sure. I haven't even really thought about that because I'm not on Obamacare. However, that's one of the things he's wanting to keep about it. So he was saying, I'm going to axe it, repeal and replace. Now he's saying, I'm gonna replace it, but yet I want to kind of keep some of the provisions. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying he wasn't saying that originally, and so that's kind of something that we need to look at. Maybe towards the end of the campaign, he did. So along with that, he's saying that there's a measure that allows parents to keep their children on their insurance policies up until the age of 26. So those are a couple things that he would kind of want to roll over into his policy that he implements. And so we'll just have to watch and see what happens. But Obamacare is a huge thing. For the last 2 years, I've paid the penalty for not being on it. And I made up my mind I wouldn't go on it. Because I'm not going to conform to this. To me, it's almost world government. It's just the government usurping authority over me in ways that it shouldn't. It's tyrannical, and I don't like it, so I haven't done it. I've paid the fine. And so consequently, I finally did buy my own insurance because I'm simply not going to go on that. And I know not everybody can afford to do that. I totally understand all that. I'm just saying I found a very affordable kind of insurance where I didn't have to do that because I simply didn't want to be told what to do. And that's just me. And so, but I'm just saying, well, I'm looking to see what Trump is going to do. He's saying that he'll take down all the state lines and different things, and he'll make it more competitive. Maybe the rates will drop way down. I may go on it in the future. I don't know. But as of right now, I simply haven't. But I have paid the fine, and it's not fun if some of you all have had to pay that fine as well. But that's another one of the things we're looking at. So what are we talking about today? I know we're coming up to a break. If you only get the first 30 minutes, go to endtime.com. You can watch this whole program. We also live stream now on our Endtime Facebook page. This program and all the ones Irvin does are live streamed on the endtime.com. You can go there and watch it. And or on Facebook.com, I'm sorry. And you can also go live to endtime.com and watch it. So join us there and continue on with me when we get back, looking at the key issues of President-elect Donald Trump.
From Here to Armageddon, a new exciting 8-lesson series to share with your friends and family. Order yours right away.
Answering many questions like how far are we from the Battle of Armageddon? What will happen between now and then? Where are we on the timeline? Your questions answered in this exciting 8-lesson series, From Here to Armageddon.
Go to endtime.com or call 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-ENDTIME, 1-800-363-8463. Order yours right away.
Most people have dreamed of someday walking on the ground where Jesus walked over 2,000 years ago. You don't want to wait any longer. Make this the year for your life-changing experience. Judy and I would like to invite you to join us for our 2017 Spring End Time Prophecy Tour. This is a 14-day trip to Israel and Rome. Please join us to experience the greatest place on earth, the Promised Land, with an added bonus, Rome, Italy. Start making your plans right now and join us April 30th through May 13th of 2017. We're going to have a wonderful time.
Call now to reserve your place today at 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463 or go to endtime.com.
If your station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com and click the watch button to continue today's broadcast. You can also finish up later by clicking the archives button.
Well, welcome back, everybody. And we're talking about, I'm getting so many questions in here concerning President-elect Donald Trump. And I have those same questions myself. What's he going to do? Which direction are we headed in? Are we going to continue in a liberal, total liberal situation, what we've been in the last administration, making some very poor decisions concerning this country? Or are we going to move towards a conservative position, move back towards making some godly decisions perhaps, and move towards being a Christian nation again? I believe we're a Christian nation in many ways, but some of the leaders that we've had over the last several years have steered us in a completely wrong direction, made some horrible decisions, and so we're kind of really wanting to know, what will Trump do? We voted him in on change. Is he going to actually change some of the things that he said he was going to do during the campaign trail? And I know a lot of y'all have the same questions that I do. So what we do is, when somebody calls in and says, Dave, what do you think Trump's going to do? I say, well, let's look at the issues. Abortion, climate change, some of the different ones gun control. And I say, now, he said he was going to do this on the campaign trail. We were in favor of those things. But really, until he gets in the office and starts making the actual decisions and putting those things in place, a lot of us don't even know at this point. So it's really very important that we watch key things. One of the next issues that you probably are going to want to watch is the Trans-Pacific Partnership, this trade deal, the TPP. Trump on the campaign trail, he said that the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, would be the death blow for American manufacturing. He says there's no way to fix the TPP. We need bilateral trade deals, not one handed down from on high. And he stated during the campaign trail, I'm going to withdraw the United States from the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Well, we like that because we signed a Declaration of Independence. We're not supposed to be for all the nations in the world. We're supposed to be for the United States, and then we can help those nations. But we're not creating a global nation. We don't want that. And so, but Mr. Trump, and he also said recently, though, you say, well, what's going on now with it? Recently, he stated that among his first actions, and this was just over the last couple days, that he would issue our notification of intent to withdraw from the Trans-Pacific Partnership and replace it with negotiating fair bilateral trade deals. Okay, that's great news. That's a step that he's made, a statement that he's made that said, look, we're going to start the process of pulling the United States out of that, and we're going to negotiate fair bilateral trade deals. That's great news for people who want to pull away from this United Nations global type way of method of operation. We don't want that. And so consequently, I see this as a good thing. But we'll have to watch how it plays out over 6 months to a year, a couple years, to see really what Trump's all about. Because if he's going to pull away from a lot of things that the previous administrations put us into, number one, basically wrapping us up in this one world governing body and making us walk hand in hand with the United Nations, which is it's a world government body. It's not a good thing. It's a very bad thing. We don't want anything to do with the United Nations. But they're located right here in New York. And several of the past administrations, Clinton, both Bushes, President Obama, they're all about the United Nations. And they've yielded up much of our sovereignty to the United Nations. And so consequently, it's some of the things we're watching about. We don't want anything to do with all these trade deals around the world. I'd like to back us out of NAFTA and everything else. We don't like that. It's job killers. And one of the next issues that we need to look at is a two-state solution. Of course, Israel is the prophecies of the Bible, most of them concerning the second coming of Jesus Christ, focus right there on the nation of Israel. It's where a lot of this stuff's going to happen. So we want to know because, as you know, we teach that a peace agreement between the Palestinians and the Israelis will be the event that starts the final 7 years to the second coming of Jesus Christ in the Battle of Armageddon. So who's going to sign this two-state solution? It's very, very, very important. Sign the peace agreement that creates a two-state solution. Well, it appears that Trump would like to get a deal signed between the Israelis and the Palestinians. But he still is remaining neutral. He's saying, I'd love to get it done. But number one, he's saying, I'm not going to enforce a solution on them like people in the Obama administration were tempted to do, and they actually threatened to do it at one point, is to remove our veto, withhold our veto from a United Nations imposed solution on the Israeli-Palestinian deal. And some people have thought that President Obama might consider doing that even before he leaves office. I honestly don't see that getting done. I mean, he would have to really, really hurry it up. We're right here before Thanksgiving. He leaves office latter part of January. I don't see that getting done. If he did, I'd be real surprised. But it's something we need to watch, because will Trump be the president that gets a peace deal signed in the Middle East, or that works with other countries to get it done? Well, I don't know that. But we'll have to watch and see what happens, because at this point, he's remained neutral. And if you've ever been in sales or negotiating, you understand why. You're not going to tell everybody right up front and show them all your cards. That's not going to happen. That's not how you play the game. You hold back and you see, what's this one going to do? What's this one want? How can we negotiate this? If you lay your cards out on the table right up in the front, the negotiation's over. And so consequently, we just got to watch what Trump's going to do. But the two-state solution, the Israeli peace agreement, that's one of the issues that we really need to focus on watching Trump, because that will determine the way our nation heads. Are we going to stand with Israel? And are we going to go against them? Because really, Israel, according to Scripture, should not give up land for peace. Let's just face it. We don't want to be involved in that. Trump may end up being involved in it, but from a Christian standpoint, I don't want Israel to give up 1 inch of the promised land. If you look back from a biblical, prophetic standpoint, I don't want to be involved in that, helping them get that deal done. Even though we might be, Trump may have a part in that, I wouldn't want to be involved in it, because you're talking about trying to get Israel to give up land for peace, and that's a big no-no in God's eyes. So, but we'll have to watch and see what Trump does eventually. It could be some European people. There's the Paris peace initiative that's going on right now. They're trying to have a big meeting here before the end of the year, and to see if they can get something done. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But that's one of the issues you should really keep your eye on. The next one, which is very important, this will be one of the standards of President-elect Trump's administration. Will he be the president that moves the embassy, the United States Embassy, to Jerusalem? Right now it's located in Tel Aviv. He stated on the campaign trail, "We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem. And we will send a clear signal that there is no daylight between America and our most reliable ally, the State of Israel." You say, well, I don't really understand. What's the significance of that? Well, in 1995, Congress passed a law declaring Jerusalem to be Israel's capital and requiring that the embassy be moved from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem by 1999, or else the State Department, the building budget would be cut in half. So they made it a law. But the law actually, and this is, I don't even understand this, these guys pass these laws and then give provisions where you can opt out. Does that make sense? But the 95 law included a provision allowing presidents to waive its requirements for 6 months if they determined that it was in the national interest or somebody's interest. I'll put up, those of you that are listening to me, putting up quotation marks, somebody's interest. So every 6 months, Mr. Clinton, Mr. Bush, and eventually President Obama, they all signed the waivers every 6 months, saying, well, in the interest of national security, we can't move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, because some of them were fearing a violent response in the Arab world if the embassy was moved. And they were also fearing the wrath of the international community, because the international community doesn't see the settlements out there. They see that as Israel's occupying that territory, and they don't have a legal right to that. And because Israel conquered the eastern portion of the city of Jerusalem in 1967, They didn't see that that was legal, that they should occupy that, and they actually annexed that into Israel territory in 1980. They don't see that as really legal, and they don't accept that. And so because we have not wanted to offend the international community, the world governing body, we haven't moved the embassy there. So consequently, that's one of the things that we're watching. It would be humongous if President-elect Donald Trump next June would say, move the embassy. If he does that, then you and I will know he's going to pull us out of the United Nations. We're not going to stand with this, because it would be right in the face of the United Nations if he said, we're going to move the embassy. That's why it's such a big decision. He said he's going to do it. His daughter Ivanka said we're going to do it. We're going to move the embassy. Well, let's see if he does it. If he doesn't do it, does that mean he's cowering to the will of the international community? You got to think about that, because he said all during the campaign trail, I will do it. Hillary Clinton said she would move it. Obama said he would move it. Bush said he would move it. They all said they would move it. Then when they get in the office, they say, well, in the interest of national security, we can't do it. It's a huge thing. Let's see what they do. Remember, don't pay attention to anything you hear, and only half of what you see. Ben Franklin. But I want to see, period. I want to see, I know they've said that, but it's easy to say something to get elected. I want to see what he's going to do. And so that's why I'm really interested to see the first 6 months, from January to June. What's going to happen in that first 6 months? He's going to be setting so many decisions and offices and all these different things in directions. I'm really interested to see which way we're going to head. Are we going to pull out of the United Nations, or are we going to yield up more sovereignty to the United Nations? Because a lot of these past presidents, all administrations, even before Obama, yielded up a lot of our sovereignty. George Bush Sr. was talking about the New World Order, and how that when we went to fight Saddam Hussein, he was saying it's not Saddam Hussein against the United States, it's Saddam Hussein against the world. Because he knew that we were moving into a system of world government, the New World Order. George Bush Sr. So all of them have been for pro-one worlders. George Bush Sr., George Bush Jr., Bill Clinton, Obama, they all believe in the New World Order, a world government. And so that's what and I know we're coming up to a break, but those are the things we're watching. When we come back from the break, I'll get to the United Nations and what he feels about that. It's very, very, very important. So we'll stay right here, and you can join me back after the break, and we'll get into the United Nations, and we'll talk about issues we should be watching to see what President-elect Donald Trump's going to do.
On the ground where Jesus walked over 2,000 years ago. You don't want to wait any longer. Make this the year for your life-changing experience. Judy and I would like to invite you to join us for our 2017 Spring Endtime Prophecy Tour. This is a 14-day trip to Israel and Rome. Please join us to experience the greatest place on earth, the Promised Land, with an added bonus, Rome, Italy. Start making your plans right now and join us April 30th through May 13th of 2017. We're going to have a wonderful time.
Call now to reserve your place today at 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463, or go to endtime.com.
Well, man, time is sure flying. I've got so much information to go over today. But, I mean, we're getting the question all the time. Hey, what's Trump going to do? I mean, everybody's interested in it. Whether you voted for him or not, what's he really going to do? Is he going to do all that stuff he said he was going to, all those promises? Is he going to do that? Is he going to live up to all of those promises that he said he was going to do? It's very important, because I want to know the direction this country's going in. And so I'm talking about issues today that we should look for. Abortion, all these different things. Abortion is very important to us as Christians. We're pro-life. I don't want abortions in this country. You're killing babies. We don't want that. I don't want to head in that direction. And so I don't want to support any entity that does that. And so consequently, these are issues that we should look at. Climate change, the Second Amendment, all these different things. We need to look at that. What's Trump going to do on these things? These are key issues. The next one is obviously the United Nations. I'm not going to spend much time on this, but the process of globalization. It's very important that we look at that, because if Trump builds a wall, he is going right in the face of the United Nations and the process of globalization. They want to do away with any kind of borders. They don't want any nation protecting their borders. They want to do away with that, create a global community that answers to the one world governing body. That's the goal of the globalists, internationalists, people who believe in a one world government. Trump saying, I'm going to build a wall and protect our borders, he's flying right in the face of the United Nations and the world governing body. Believe me, I am so interested to see, is he going to do that? It's one of the issues that we need to look at to say, okay, you said you were going to do it. Now, let's see you put up. Let's see you do it. Go down there and build a wall, and let's protect it. Let's pull out of the United Nations. We don't want to stand with them. God's going to destroy the world governing body. When he comes back, plants his feet on the Mount of Olives, the Battle of Armageddon is going to be fought between the world government armies and Israel. That's what it's going to be fought about. It's going to be the final battle between good and evil, Satan and God, the United Nations, the world governing body, the Antichrist, and Israel. That's what it's going to be fought over. We don't want to be a part of that at all. We want to have pulled out of that and become a lighthouse to the world in the last days. And that's why we want to start this country down a conservative pathway and back to God, Christian biblical principles, not the liberal leaning and going down that direction where people support abortion and all these other different things. Don't want that. So consequently, one of the things that we'll need to watch that will come up in President-elect Trump's during his tenure here in the first 4 years is a national ID here in the United States. It's one of the things we're very concerned about. I've got an article here. It's called Real ID Decisions. Whoever wins the presidential election is going to face big choices regarding the national Real ID law. Now, you know, it comes from the U.S. News and World Report. Everybody knows that we teach and have taught that the Real ID is an effort by our government to implement a national ID here in the United States. Most of the nations on earth are already fully functioning under a national ID. They give all of their citizens a unique identification number, and they get them, you have to have that number, that card, to function in society. Without that, you can't, there's no access to health care. I mean, there's so many things. You can't, in Uganda, you can't have a job. No access to education, no access to travel, nothing without that national ID. Well, the reason they want to number people is so they can control them. Consider Adolf Hitler numbering the Jews. He did that so he can control them. Yes, you have a number on you, you're strong enough to work, you go to the right. X person comes in and if you don't get a number, you weren't considered strong enough to work and this, that, and the other, you go to the left and they were sent to the gas chambers, different things. So if you read some of the stories, numbering them was all about controlling them. Well, that's what the Antichrist is going to want to do. He's going to number you so he can control you. Well, the Real ID Act is the United States effort to implement a national ID card here in the United States. It turns your driver's license into a national ID. Well, they're coming up to full implementation of that in 2020. And so during obviously Trump's going in 2017. So that's when obviously he'll begin his tenure, January 2017. So within the 3 years of that, the Department of Homeland Security is going to try to have full implementation of this Real ID Act. So the question is, does presidential-elect, this is another question, this is something we need to watch, does presidential-elect Donald Trump support having a U.S. national ID card? Now, believe me, I'll be all over this one. I'll be watching this one very closely. Because by quirk of fate, the question may be one of the first issues to land on the new president's desk after Inauguration Day. When U.S. Department of Homeland Security efforts to implement a national ID kick in, that's when they kick into high gear, folks. Department of Homeland Security, DHS, announced recently, just within the last week or two, that it will refuse Americans access to federal facilities beginning on January 30, 2017. That's if they carry the driver's license or IDs from states that don't comply with the Real ID Act. So this hardball tactic, obviously, will be carried out in the new president's name. So this is something that Donald Trump's going to be staring right in the face when he walks in office. Now, you say, well, what's the Real ID? I don't understand it. Well, Congress passed the Real ID Act way back in 2005. George Bush signed it into law. And it seeks to coerce the states into issuing ID cards and licenses with nationally standardized data implements. It also requires states to share their databases or driver's information across a national data network. So this national ID system, they actually call it, they're not even really trying to hide it anymore. It's a national ID system, and it will be run by the states for the federal government. The law calls on the federal agencies led by the Department of Homeland Security to refuse IDs and driver's licenses from non-compliant states. Many states have resisted these federal dictates. So starting in January, military families, even from those states who have resisted, they're going to be turned away from their sons and daughters' boot camp graduations because they're not allowed on the base. And this is if they can't find suitable alternatives of identification. Other elements of the Department of Homeland Security's enforcement plan include turning travelers from non-compliant states away from airports in 2018. You see, they're implementing it in steps. And then by 2020, the Department of Homeland Security expects every domestic air traveler to present a Real ID compliant license or some other federal or federally approved identification in order to fly on a plane or enter a federal building. So by 2020, they're wanting to completely, full implementation. If this is fully implemented in 2020, it will make President-elect Donald Trump the first president to have implemented a national ID in the United States of America. I want to say that again. If implemented in 2020, this will make President-elect Trump the first president to implement a national ID in the United States of America. Do you understand the ramifications of this? It's for 240 years, the United States citizens have resisted a national ID here in the United States. And so, but if President-elect Trump allows this to continue, it will be the first time in 240 years, in 2020, when the Department of Homeland Security is trying to end up with full implementation of this, that there will be a national ID implemented here in the United States. It's very, 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 very important. And so think of it like this. Though more than 10 years old, this is more than 10 years old, it was signed in 2005. The Real ID law has not been fully implemented because the original and the firm refusal of many states. People, they started passing laws. We will not implement this. But it never died. Congress passed a Real ID in haste. It was tacked on the back of a military appropriations bill. They had to basically sign it. And in the process, they were repealing the identity security legislation that responded to a brief mention of the topic in the 911 Commission report. And soon after, in the Real ID rebellion, states across the country of all political stripes, Democratic, Republican, they were passing bills, refusing to implement the law and asking their congressional delegations to revisit the Real ID. Well, Congress has basically done nothing to address this state and federal, the pain point, because they said, we can't do this. A lot of them, it was like millions and millions of dollars just falling right in the states' laps. And the states were passing laws and doing everything to say, number one, this is a national ID. Number two, we can't afford it. And the administration, they didn't care. They were pushing. And so what they've done, because they started passing laws, then they started giving them, they started postponing it. Well, we'll give you another 18 months. See if you can get enough money. And they couldn't. So then they said, hey, we need another extension. So they've extended it. From 2005, now here we are in 2016, and it still hasn't been fully implemented because we fought against it. Here at Endtime Ministries, we understood the ramifications. So we started writing magazine articles and sending them to all the governors and senators and congressmen, to the president, all the movers and shakers, Glenn Beck, Sarah Palin, Rush Limbaugh, anybody, I mean, you name it. We were sending them magazines saying, no national ID, not in no shape, any form, no way. No national ID. And we were explaining the Cato Institute, all these places, Constitutional Alliance. There were a lot of people that were writing articles and fighting against it. Because of that, it's been postponed. Think about it. It was signed into law in President Bush in 2005. It's been postponed all the way until they're trying for final implementation 15 years later in 2020, because so many states have fought against it. But the problem is there are states now that are wearing down. They're getting tired of getting hassled by the government, and some of them, even though they're saying that they've passed laws, they still have implemented all of the 18 points that it takes to get to be fully compliant. And so it's very important that we look into what's really going on with the Real ID Act. It's very, very important because we don't want a national ID here in the United States. We're one of the last bastions of freedom in the world. And for 240 years, we've resisted, and we need to continue on with that. So really today, I wanted to go over some of the issues that are very, very critical for us to watch President-elect Donald Trump on. It's very important that we watch abortion, climate change. What's he going to do? What's he going to do with the Second Amendment? What's he going to do with the United Nations, with Israel? Where does he stand on these things? He made a lot of big promises in the campaign trail, but now let's see what he does. That'll determine which direction our country heads in over the next several years. So I just wanted, and by the way, I won't get to see you again, so happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
End of the Age is a production of Endtime Ministries. This broadcast will be available on our website, endtime.com, in the archives section. On our website, you'll also find more information about how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy. To reach our operators, call 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. Endtime Ministries is partner supported. We would like to say thank you to our partners who made this broadcast possible. To do what Matthew 24:14 said, to reach the world with the gospel of the kingdom.